All right, so we're headed back to the garage to do some more. Well, today we're gonna go under the car today. We're gonna go into a little more detail. I feel like I haven't been putting enough about the actual swap, just kind of driving it and you know, showing how the car runs and all that, but haven't really gotten into any details on the swap. So, whoops, that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna jack the car up. We're gonna look at the K member. We're gonna look at the turbo piping. We're gonna look at how the oil pan sits in relation to the K member. A couple other things, but first let me jack the car up and we'll get under there and start going over it. All right, I got the car jacked up. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna flip the camera around, start showing you guys what I had to do to get this swap to work. All right, let's start from the top. On the driver's side, motor mount, you can see what I used was, it's a CX Racing motor mount for a Toyota Hilux, okay? This was, for me, it was just a guess. It was a total guess on hoping that I could modify the mount to get it to work, and it ended up working. So, and not a lot of modification. Show you the passenger side. Passenger side is a little harder to see, I guess. All right, let's go under the car. All right. There you can see the passenger side a little better. Okay, so you can see where the K member was cut and re-welded. Here, it used to come down and attach down here. And you can see where, right here, where it was cut, where I had to cut it and raise it. Otherwise, you can tell that the oil pan would definitely hit it here, because this came down and intersected with the oil pan. So it just wouldn't work. I couldn't get the motor back far enough to clear it. So this had to be cut. Let's see if you can see the motor mount. It's got like a poly bushing right where it bolts. It's a two-piece motor mount. It's got kind of a swivel. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's got like a swivel, and then it bolts to the block. Maybe you can see it better on the driver's side. Yeah, right there. There you go. You can see the poly swivel there. So basically had to do the same thing on this side. Cut and weld it. My welding's horrible. Please don't look at that. But yeah, here too, it came in and it intersected the oil pan right here and it hit. So that had to be cut. I originally tried to use the stock K member, but I would have had to cut way too much out of it in order to get it to work. So, all right, so you can see the rest of the suspension, the Team Z A-arms, stock sway bar, some strange coilovers, which I'm not very happy with. They're kind of noisy, but they work. So the oil filter, there's only about an inch between the oil filter and the top of the K member motor mount. So when I take this off, it clears it by just maybe a centimeter. So that ended up working, but that was pretty close. I was thinking I might have had to relocate the oil filter, but I didn't have to do that. So, okay. All right, let's move back to the So on a Fox body, you have two different cross members, one for a 4-cylinder, one for an 8-cylinder, for a T5. This is the 4-cylinder cross member, okay? And the reason you can tell that is because it's only got one hump for the exhaust, whereas the V8 cross member has a hump over here too. And it also is located further forward. So if you're going to do this into a Fox body and you want to follow what I did, you would have to find a 4-cylinder cross member, and it works great because all I had to do was build this little bracket to bolt the transmission to, and then bolt it to the cross member. Now, it may look like this is solid mounted, which would not be a good thing, but there's big rubber bushings where it connects to the frame rails. So it's actually not solid mounted. It's isolated. It's isolated here. So shouldn't be a problem with any kind of, because if you solid mount a transmission to the body, you can crack the transmission, which is, you don't want to do that. So, and then I ended up going ahead and getting a yoke from Jegs. I'll see if I can put a link in the description for this yoke. It's just if you look up a Toyota transmission spline yoke, I just ordered the yoke and then measured. When I slipped it into the transmission, I measured from the center of the yoke back to the back, where to the center of this yoke. Okay, the flange that goes to the 8.8, the rear end. You measure that to the center, from center to center, and that's how you order your drive shaft. Okay, I'll put a link in the description. I got it from this company here, Coleman Racing. They're really good. All you do is call them and you tell them I need a drive shaft that is this length, center to center, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so that pretty much does that. The linkage for the shifter on a Fox body is normally not here. It's normally on this side. So what I did was I pulled the automatic shifter out, flipped it around, and it ended up being on this side in a perfect spot. What I had to do was I just had to modify the linkage. I had to, this rod that connects the linkage from the shifter to the transmission, I had to cut it and weld it. I don't know if you can see it or not. Anyway, it had to be cut and welded. That's pretty self-explanatory though. What else? Okay, fuel lines. I got really lucky with this. This car was originally a 4-cylinder, and the fuel lines were right here. Okay, the feed and the return, they both come up right here. On the JZ, that's where they feed. They feed on the driver's side shaft. So it was a little tricky getting it to slide by the steering shaft. I had to get a manual steering rack shaft, and it still is pretty close, but it does clear. I had to upgrade to a 255 Walbro fuel pump, because what came in the 4-cylinder cars, I think, was like a 140 or something like that, and it just wouldn't be enough. So here you can see, okay, here you can see how tight it is to the K-member, the oil pan. It's pretty tight. it clears, but it's tight. So you can see the gap. The reason I got it that close was because I really wanted to keep the stock hood. I did not want to get a aftermarket cowl hood because I think they look terrible. But, all right, so, and then moving on to the downpipe is there. You got your, the first O2 sensor is for the factory ECU. The second O2 is for the AEM wideband. Yeah, so that pretty much covers the K member, what I had to do. There's a better view right there where you can see that, oh, I got it upside down. There's a better view, you can see where it had to be cut, because it used to come all the way down here. And it had to be cut and re-welded, but it ends up working out real good. So the exhaust comes through here into a V-banded into a vibrant 3-inch muffler. For some reason it looks like this is not focusing, but. And then goes out the back. You can see I went, normally on a Fox body it goes under or over the axle through there, but I went ahead and went under the axle, so it was a lot easier. And then exits here. All right, so back from under the car. I guess I'll go over the intercooler piping next. I was able to snake the intercooler piping down right in front of the radiator. Wraps around, clears everything. I made it so that it doesn't hit anything. This is just an eBay intercooler, 3-inch. It's pretty small. I think it was, I read it was rated for like 300 horse. Or no, I'm sorry, 400 horse. So and the reason I got a smaller intercooler was because I still want to run AC, which means I have to put a condenser in front of it. I have to put a condenser, or behind it rather. So I couldn't have a big intercooler. And I just had to trim right here, just a little tiny bit of the bumper I had to trim. Not a big deal though. It was, I mean, you'll never see it. It's underneath the car. So, and then wraps around here. And then back up to the throttle body. Everything fits really good. And my electric fan. I just put the AC compressor back on because summer's coming here in Florida and it's gonna get really hot. So, and I want to take this thing on road trips. So, this is kind of janky. I'm not happy about that. What a lot of people do is got the water neck here and weld maybe a -20 bung on there and then run it straight to wherever you need it to go. I may do that. I mean, this works right now, but this is kind of, when I open the hood, every time I open the hood, I see that. I'm not happy with it. This is just a catch can for the radiator. And I built this little box that houses the ECU. So I used stock wiring on this. It took me like a month to figure out. It's basically, the harness comes from here. If you're familiar with Jay-Z's, the harness comes out the back right here, wraps up around. It goes up underneath the intake manifold here, comes around, wraps up, down here, and then I have it covered with this plate here. And then it goes into this box here, and all the electronics are housed in here. I have also have a relay board in there that controls different things like powering the injectors, powering the coils, powering the ECU. So all that's housed in there. I guess one day I can go over that. I can open that up and show how it's wired up. But I know there's a ton of videos on YouTube about that, on how to wire up a JZ. So I don't know if that's something that anybody would want to see. I downloaded this diagram here. It's basically what I used. If you want to like stop the video, you could screenshot this, and I've got marked what different plugs do. Okay, and you can use it for reference. So anyway, yeah, I use this board here to help with the build. I recommend that you try to figure out what your goal is, what you want, what you want to do. Write down everything you can possibly think of, as far as what you're going to need, all the stuff you're going to do to the car. Make a list, and then just start checking them off one by one. That's what I did. I still have the AC to do, and I have to hook up my oil pressure gauge. Now, I have an oil pressure gauge hooked to the dummy factory gauge, which is, it's not really an oil pressure gauge. It's more of a whether you have oil pressure or not. So if you have oil pressure, it's on. If you don't have oil pressure, then it's off. So I have a mechanical one I want to hook up. It's going to be more accurate, and I can monitor what the oil pressure is actually doing, not just whether I have oil pressure or not. So, okay. And then there's a few other things. This little diagnostic port here is important. This is how you can check for engine codes. I believe it's you short these two pins together. I'll get into that into another video, because this video is getting kind of long. But there's a way to check the codes. It's really simple. You short two pins, and you have a light that you hook to another pin, and it'll flash, and it'll give you codes. It'll flash twice, and then 7 times. That's code 27. So anyway, so yeah, I'll get into that into another video. But yeah, so this has the stock mass air. You would, if you're buying a JZ, you want to make sure it comes with that. These are expensive, or a stock. If you're using stock ECU, you want this. It won't run without it. Now, if you're upgrading to like AEM or something like that, you get rid of the mass air, and you just run like a map sensor. So one day I'll do that. But the mass airflow meter is good for the street because it adjusts for everything. It adjusts for the temperature, the climate, humidity. It adjusts. So it's very friendly on the street. When you go AEM and you like a standalone, and you take it to the dyno and you get it tuned, that's great. But you get a really cold day, your car won't idle. Or you get a really hot day. If the weather's different than what you tuned it for, the car's not going to run right. To some that's not a big deal. But if I just want to get in and start it up and go, I don't want to have to deal with that. So, but if you want to make more power and you want to, really push this motor, it's something you have to do. So, but anyway, that's probably going to be it for this video. if they have any questions, let me know. I know that I'm forgetting a lot of stuff. I haven't even gone over what is done to the car itself as far as wheels, brakes, suspension, you know, the rear end, the interior. The interior is pretty stock, but anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe and comment and like it, and I'll see you next time.